Kaytraminé self-titled album review. Let's chat about it. Hey friends, what's going on? John Everyone spinning here tonight to chat about this debut project from Kaytraminé, which is the coming together of producer Kaytraminé as well as MC Amine. And these are two guys that I've had a lot of different, very polarizing thoughts on over the years, especially when it comes to the music of Amine in the years that he was starting to get a lot of hype, following his mixtapes, his Good For You album. I listened to this thing at the time and I instantly almost shut the guy off completely and just decided to never listen to him ever again. I mean, I'm not a fan of the album. I thought a lot of the bars were corny. I thought his singing was not nearly up to snuff, and the production was just very dime a dozen. It was a very, very below average pop rap tape, and I even listened to it a week and a half ago, and I still don't like it after all these years. Now, he did quickly bounce back, in my view, with his next album, 1.5. This was an album that I thought raised the bar on all levels. The beats were much more interesting, the production was a lot more left field, and I thought that his verses had just grown a lot in a couple of years. Hell, there's some tracks on this album, like Why, that are still on my cardio playlist. I still love the hell out of a lot of tracks here. Now, his next album, Limbo. It's a really tough album to really gauge. The first half of this album I thought was some of Amine's best stuff. I thought the features were solid, the beats were great, his songwriting was up. A lot of the first half of this album really impressed the hell out of me. But when this thing fell off, and it did fall off, I genuinely felt like he was putting out some of his worst material. And the last time we heard from Amine with 2.5, I didn't love it, didn't hate it. It was just kind of there. I just kind of felt like we were in a lull period again in his career. Now, he has not come alone to dance this time. He has brought along a Canadian producer, an electronic artist, Kaytraminé, who is somebody who I have not really given as much respect to as others over the years on this channel, just because I haven't really gotten a chance to talk about him. His debut album, 99.9%, I was late to the dance on this album. It was a long time until I came around to listen to this thing, and when I did, it was just way too late to really make a review about it, but I've grown to love it. Just the blend of modern electronic, but also some jazz and funk, and the expert picking of vocal guests. This thing's a great album, and I did like his follow-up, Bubba, almost just as much. Now, it's been a while since we've heard from either one of these guys, and as we know, the full-length album pairing between producer and an MC, it's led to some amazing albums. Some may say some of the best hip-hop albums since the year 2000. Your Mad Villainies, your Freddie Gibbs and Madlib's Pinata. Even last year's Cheat Codes with Black Thought and Danger Mouse, which I thought was pretty freaking amazing. And leading up to this album, I thought they were dropping a lot of fresh singles. Let's chat about this thing. This album starts off with who he is, and right off the bat, this does a great job of hyping me up for this album. Kaytraminé brings in this very slick, animated beat that has a little bit of mystery, but a lot of personality. And like you've probably gathered by this point, as far as Amine's rhymes goes, I haven't always been completely on board with him, but his braggadocious bars on this track absolutely hit the spot, and you believe every one of them. The confidence is certainly here. It had some sort of left field production and some real risks, and you've got a hell of an opener. Then we have Let's Talk About It, featuring Mr. Freddie Gibbs. And, I want to take a minute to just point out something that I've seen kind of, analyzed in a lot of reviews. And, looking at this album's cover, a lot of people thought this was going to be like a very summery, very light, very animated and fun album. And a lot of people were kind of upset with what we've got here. And I kind of disagree. I think that this album definitely has plenty to stand on its own. But we get tracks like this, and it's just so smooth, so jazzy, just so expertly done. Like, I can't be mad with this. As far as Amine's verse goes here, he sounds upbeat, he sounds animated, it just sounds great to hear him out of that perpetual cloud of weed smoke that was kind of plaguing his early albums. And, Freddie is Freddie Gibbs for a reason. He absolutely slays his verse here. It's a great track. And then we have Forever, featuring Pharrell Williams, and I haven't wrote in my notes here, are you kidding me? This track is a freaking blast, and easily one of the best hip-hop singles I've heard all year. Just probably one of the funnest singles I've heard all year in general. It's got some serious funk to it, there's some nasty grooves, and Aminé's verse here, I mean, he was tailor-made for this beat. And Pharrell on this hook, it's not overbearing, it's not a lot, it's nothing fancy, but it's just enough. I love a lot of the synths on this track too. Sometimes things just come together and mesh together and work. That's exactly what this track is doing right now. Westside, on the other hand, this track, it's got a real icy, chilly beat to it. It's got a great deal of drama to it, but I think the most impressive thing on this track is Aminé and his ability to really change with the sort of shift in an album. He absolutely slays this beat. He sounds super cold, super aggressive. It's really refreshing. And sure, this album may not be as easygoing and laid back and colorful as I had anticipated, but the results we're getting, I'm certainly not upset. I mean, I'm looking at the facts here, and the facts here for a good bulk of this album, the two play off each other flawlessly. I would say, though, that the good times do not last. At least for a few tracks, we have Master P featuring Big Sean. This one is tough, because on one hand, I look at the production, the beat here, and everything seems to be in tip-top shape. It is one of the most alive-sounding, left-field, and just experimental beats here, and I can't get enough of it. But Aminé on this track, God help him, he sounds like he's trying desperately to catch up. It's a track that is going through a really pretty large personality disorder. And then you have Big Sean. He sucks. I mean, it's not the worst track on here, but I definitely expect a little bit more. I mean, it's not nearly as bad as STFU3. What happened here? This track is bad. It's really, really bad. This sounds like a quirkier, early Aminé single that just had no legs to stand on. There is such a major disconnect here. This beat is so rigid. As far as a Kaytraminé, beat and production on this album, this is very far from the best. This is easily the worst thing here. And not only that, it's easily one of the worst hip-hop tracks I've heard all year. And K&A, as a finale, it's simply frustrating. The good news here is this beat, this production. It's easily some of the classiest, most genuinely intriguing work here. But it's Aminé's performance on this track. Once again, he is really dipping back into some very old habits of his on this track. A lot of the bars are full of cliches, a lot of goofy lines as well, and he just doesn't have the same confidence as he did on some of the better tracks on this album. It's really confusing. And on an album where I wished a lot of tracks were a minute or two longer. There's a lot of short tracks on this album. This track goes over 5 minutes. And what's most infuriating is the beat switch, which is done flawlessly. The final beat that we get here is an absolute triumph. But as soon as this song shifts 3 minutes in to a second verse almost entirely, Aminé just really steps up in every way. His bars are more confident, he's more aggressive, and it ends off the album on a note that I felt like it actually should. They really just should have cut out the first 3 minutes entirely, honestly. But the rest of this album, it's a lot of fun, and it shows, what great chemistry two people can have on a project like this. I do really like Ugh Ugh as well. I love how dark and left field this track is, and Aminé really steps up once again with being much more ruthless and cold, and does really well with it. And you know what, I'm just going to say it, this isn't the kind of track that I would usually go for from either one of these guys. It's a risk that pays off. It's something different. I appreciate it. I could definitely see, some people not being into this album, or, wishing some different vibes on this album. Trust me, I understand that wholeheartedly. Also, that little beat shift we get for that epilogue, it is some funky stuff. Rebuke is another single that dropped here. It's very short, it's very sweet, very direct. It's got this dusty, sort of psychedelic beat that is just so smooth. I love the sung hook that we get here. I love the free-spirited atmosphere. This to me is kind of where I expected this entire album to be. Kaytraminé absolutely slays this beat. Amine steps up with some really introspective and interesting bars. It's great. And for a deep cut, look no further than Sossaup featuring Amare. This track is sunny, it's loose, it's got this bright dance groove. It's colorful, and you know what? This is probably the closest thing you're getting to a true blue pop rap tune, but you know what? It's actually done really, really well, even though this is the kind of hip-hop and rap that I'm usually not that into. This is done very well. It's fun, it's vibrant. And while I was skeptical, I do really enjoy I featuring Snoop Dogg as well. I love the synth-driven beat that we get here, and shout-outs to Amine, because one thing that I haven't touched down on much on this album is just how truly great his singing has become. I'm actually kind of shocked, because that was one of his weakest points years ago. And I love how laid back and spacey his verse here is. And you know what? I'm just going to say it. I did really enjoy Snoop's verse as well. Yes, there is one or two lines that made me cringe so hard. But he sounds like he's having fun here. And he sounds like he's got a little pep in his step. Overall, this is a very, very, very solid collaborative record. I have a couple of issues, yeah, when things kind of droop down a little bit and get off track. Yeah, there's some crap on here, you know, especially when it comes to STFU3. It's one of the worst tracks that I've heard in any genre this year. It's bad, but, you know, for the most part, I do really love a lot of what's going on here. Yeah, I wish it was maybe a little bit more colorful at times, and I absolutely wish this album was a little bit longer, but still, Kaytraminé and Amine come together and really just knock it out of the park for the most part. It's not perfect, but it's a lot of fun. They play off each other wonderfully, and it's got some good vibes, man. I'm feeling a very strong 7 on this album, but let me know what you all think down below. If you like the video, be sure to give us a like, give us a subscribe, and let me know down below what you would like for me to chat about in the future. And until next time, have a great day, friends.